Hey, security peeps. We are live with another edition of Breaking Into Cybersecurity, and we are here. It is CISO Thursdays, my favorite day of the week. I get to hang out with my new besties. Well, I guess more recent couple months worth of besties. So I'm Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, helping awesome talent get into opportunities. James, go for it.
Hey, y'all. James J Azar here, CISO and host of the CISO Talk Podcast.
Thank you, James. Naomi.
Hey, Naomi Buckwalter, security leader, but I do not have a podcast. I think I'm just in a long-term relationship with you, Renee.
I think so. I've been trying to get you, I've been like
if Naomi had her own podcast, it would be like a 5-minute, kind of short, right? It'd be like, I'm thinking out of the box today, but what is the box? What does the box look like? like with very low, kind of jazz music in the background.
It's just gonna be buzzwords. 10 minutes of buzzwords.
Zero trust, AI,
zero trust,
machine learning.
Let's think. What's happening here? Well, Naomi, you had an awesome post with Meryl yesterday before we get into our topic. And I thought that was like a budding podcast, kind of budding up a little bit there.
Something. 5 subscribers already to a channel that has one video. So I think that's good return.
I'm one of them.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, it was just another way of doing fresh faces with cybersecurity. I usually do articles. So I, interview the people. I'm like, how'd you get into cyber? I name 2 people you want to be like, what do you want to do in your life? Whatever. But in this time I was just like, let's just do a video. It's way easier. And, but the production quality thing, I'm still trying to figure out how to make videos look good, like you guys. Yeah, it's hard.
It looks fantastic.
It's. Did we lose Naomi?
No, you can hear me, right?
I hear you, but I don't hear Renee. We lost Renee. I'm sorry. It's Thursday morning.
It's Thursday. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you now. Perfect.
See, my fancy mic, I bought this. So everyone used to joke about me and this mic situation. Renee, you need a mic. Blah, 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 blah. So I buy this fancy Rode mic, right? Look at the fanciness. Fancy. And I get issues. So I don't know. I might go back to just plugging in my headphones and just keeping it moving. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
We can hear you.
Awesome. So Danielle says good morning. Good morning, Danielle. Danielle is going to be our director of merch. She said we need merch. Ben says good morning. How's everyone doing? Checks calendar Thursday morning. Yep. CISO Thursdays. Hey, Reggie. Good morning, team. Is the box cardboard? Was it a 90s Gateway PC box that looks like a...
that was my first computer. Yes. That brings it back. Oh my God. How much was that? Now I'm thinking it was probably like $6,000.
It's nuts.
That brings me back.
Hey, Rashid. Good morning. So the folks are here ready and waiting to get into our hot topic for today. I'm going to let James kick this one off because it's a good one. It's a really, really good one. We're going to talk about Chris Krebs and the life and death of CISOs. Go ahead, James.
A very quick death of CISOs.
Right. Correct.
So CISO's average lifetime is 18 months, more or less. So here's the deal. Chris Krebs,
2.5 years.
Maybe 18 months. So 18 months, really 18 months, 2.5 years are, I don't know, long. One of those. It is.
Yeah, 18 months feels right.
18 months is just about right. 9 months is, if you get past the 9-month mark, you're pretty much sticking through 18. You get through 18, you make it to about 30. And then from there, oh my God, you're like an anomaly. Right? You're like the 3:40 a.m. votes. So here's the deal. Director Chris Krebs, who leads CISA and has led CISA since its inception in 2018, was fired on Tuesday by tweet. I still can't get used to Twitter being how we fire government officials, but I guess that's the new thing. And so here's the deal, though, with what that means, whether you agree with the firing or not. And we can debate that, but I think that takes us down the political path. I want to really talk about the narrative where anytime something goes off the tracks for a security professional, they're the first to get canned. A breach, an incident, anything of that sort, no matter what they do, they're the first to go down the path. So is it even worth it to be a CISO anymore? Is it worth it to even want to be in a leadership security position? Like, I'm kind of looking at me and Naomi, and I'm like, roles as directors or VP somewhere, because you're safer there. You'll last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you won't have the gray hairs that you get as a CISO. That's why I cut my hair short, not only because I was in the Army, but my grays come in and then it's just bad. But I mean, it's a discussion where, we always talk about wanting to get into security, but when we see what happened to Director Krebs, or what happened to Mike Johnson over at Capital One after what happened there last year, right? Or other breaches where the CISOs were canned, it kind of makes you look at this and go like, this is going to happen to me. And when it does, why? Right? Like if a CFO misses a quarter, he doesn't get fired. A CEO misses projections, they don't get fired. But we security guys, the moment one successful attack happens, we're gone.
Yep.
So let's have that conversation.
I sometimes look at it as a contract almost. Like, I talk to CISOs all the time, and folks are always looking for the next thing, because if something goes down, then, chief information scapegoat officer, off you go, and you're constantly having to look for an opportunity.
I came upon this exact topic. Dr. Eric Cole was talking about this in his podcast. You should check this out, but he only has about like 400 views per video, but I'm telling you, his content is gold. Dr. Eric Cole, but he was talking about this because he's saying that, if instead of CISOs getting fired for the one thing, it's most likely because they haven't been communicating out what kind of attacks they've been blocking or successfully remediating or mitigating. So part of the CISO's job is to convince people, like a salesperson would be like, here's my effectiveness. Here's the ability of my, like how I'm able to do my job well. So if every day you're coming in and every time you're talking to an executive, be like, hey, we successfully blocked 1,000 phishing attacks, or 6 nation state actors on our firewall, or something where you can just very definitively prove with numbers. You can show them. No one's going to argue the numbers, right? You can just say, here's the numbers, and here's all the great things I've done. And we let one slip through, you're going to fire me? Like, that's the way we should be approaching it, showing them the numbers and showing them how successful we are 99% of the time, and then just that 1% of the time. That way, when the executives do try to put you on the chopping block, they'll stop and think, it's like, do we really want to do this? Because we're getting the right numbers from this person. And yeah, we can let one through if we knew exactly how well they've been doing. What do you guys think about that?
So theoretically, what you say in theory makes a ton of sense. The problem with that is that your board doesn't care how many phishing attacks you stopped. They could care less that you're dealing with nation states. I've sat with multiple boards and I try to go like, hey guys, we're blocking the, Chinese and Russian cyber units within their state sponsored attacks on our organizations. We're blocking these guys with, 6 underpaid security guys, a CISO, and like a shitty security budget. Like, give us some credit here. And they go, well, that's what we pay you guys to do. That's what we expect of you. And so there's this taking CISOs for granted, right? And taking security for granted and looking at it and not empowering it. And part of it has to do with our miscommunication as CISOs. I mean, when you talk about why I started my CISO Talk podcast was just for that reason. Because when a CISO goes through a breach, he gets canned. He's told to never speak publicly about what happened, right? Because that's part of his severance package when he's fired. They're like, you're not allowed to talk about our breach. Here's your severance package, and here's your non-disclosure form, and here's your media. So, and they can't get a job. Like, I can't tell you how many peers I know that have gone through this that can't get a job after, because people want to interview them to hear what happened, to get the gossip. But then they always fall through in the second or third stage of interviews. That's literally the reason I started my CISO Talk podcast, because I'm like, at least I can give you a platform to where when something does happen, there's content out there that talks about your career, about your vision, about your leadership, about your input that people can reference and look at to give you an opportunity, because you're not allowed to talk after you're gone.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to defend yourself when all the trolls on social media jump on top of you and assume the worst. Because, like, for the Equifax breach, there was this poor lady who was a CISO. I forget her name, but her major was in something like musical education, or something like that. And everyone was like, "Oh, she just didn't know what she was doing because she had a music education," or something like bullshit like that. Sorry for my French there, Renee. But it just got me so upset where I'm like, wait, hold on. She can't even go on social media to defend herself because of contracts or whatever, NDAs. And now you're just jumping on top of her, making assumptions that she wasn't doing her job. How do you not know the full story? You haven't even dug into past the fact that you know she doesn't have a cybersecurity degree, which didn't exist, by the way, back in the day when she went to college. So like it was that particular one sticks out to me where CISOs can't win. So
the global CIO for Equifax, who was the only guy that was fired, his name is Graham Payne. Okay, I had Graham on my podcast a while ago, last year when he wrote his book, and I have his book. It's right behind me, and it's on my shelf. I love his book. I had him on the podcast. The first time he was supposed to come on my podcast, right before his book came out, he got a cease and desist from his employer. But Graham had death threats on his family and home after the Equifax breach. He had private security at his house because people were calling him and threatening him. So there is a level here where we not only aren't allowed to defend ourselves, but he couldn't get a job after. And that's someone's livelihood, right? When a CFO misses a quarter or 2 or 3, and he's a bad CFO, he still gets hired somewhere else.
Yeah. Livelihood and life.
Yeah.
If you have security, you have a private security staff. That's unbelievable.
Right. But this whole thing of, being able to this whole idea of we have a bunch of comments here on the side of you're only as good as your last attack, right? Well, that's BS. Then, that's absolute BS, because you're going to get attacked and some of them are going to be successful. That's just numbers, right? That's just statistics. That's a fact. It doesn't matter what you have. The question is, can you recover, and can the business really, can you proceed with the business and take it forward? And how do you get rid of the general in the middle of a war? You need a guy who has the keys to everything.
Yeah, like this will fix it. Let's get rid of that person. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Hey!
Look who's here.
Hey, Mon. How you doing, Mon?
I know. He just finished doing some... What were you doing? He's working. He's working. When you said, hey, Mon, I was going to talk about smoking. William says, hello. Philip says, so true about this. Happy birthday week, James.
Thank you.
You're almost as old as me.
Yeah.
You're like 21 again, right?
I am. I've been 21 for 16 years.
Philip says we're walking a thin line. Scapegoat, someone to blame. Yes, William, someone to blame.
Wait, we're talking about Krebs, aren't we?
Oh, yes, we are. But that brings us back to James' point. Who would want to be a CISO if you know your basic end result would be loss of job and possibly never getting a job again in security? So,
well, you don't get a job in you don't get to be CISO again, but you get to go work for a vendor, right? You get to go work for a vendor or one of the big four after a few years, right? And maybe do a talk at RSA and Black Hat. And that's that.
That's normal for life cycle anyway.
But should that be the case? Like that's an unhealthy cycle.
So Ben had a good question. Are we talking 18 months at a specific company, or do most CISOs bill on the title after 18 months? So I
think it's 18 months at a company. But like with regards to Krebs, I think most of the honorable companies that are not loyalist to a specific political party will see what happened and not like ding his record for it.
Well, I don't think Krebs's record is going to get dinged at all, because there's no adjudication to whether or not this election was secure or not. There's nothing to dispute what Krebs said, and there's nothing to support what the president said, right? Meaning, if in a month from now, all of a sudden we realize these tabulating machines were manipulating votes or switching votes, then you can see justification of what happened. But then at that point, was that the duty of CISA to check that, or was that the duty of the local Secretary of State in every single state to ensure that those machines weren't being, manipulated, or whatever the case may be? And again, like, I don't want to get into the political aspect of it because it hasn't been adjudicated, right? Like, we're talking here on semantics at this point, and that's a waste of time. I think the culture where we immediately fire a security chief at the slightest hint of an issue is the problem.
Yeah.
And it's a problem where right now you look at people who, want to become CISOs, and I'm like, well, maybe you should just aim to be a vice president.
Or do you really want to be a CISO?
Do you really want to be a CISO?
Do you really want to be a CISO? And I think we've had some people on, and that's been a topic. Like, do you really want to be a CISO? All right, more comments. Brent says, depends on the company and managing expectations. He spent 5+ years in each of my last 2 roles. Current role is closing on 3 years and have weathered successful attacks. Brent, you need to be teaching a class, my friend.
Bring him on.
Brent needs to come on my podcast.
Yes, he's the anomaly. An hour podcast too, Brent. You want to come on?
It's okay. We can make it like a multi-podcast room, Chris. This is all about partnership, buddy. We're stronger together than we are apart.
I want to do some sort of study or something that follows CISOs that have been fired after a breach. And I want to see what happened to them. I want to do some sort of like a report or an article about that. I think that'll be my next thing. I am curious.
That would be a really good one.
Yeah, see if I can get that at scale somehow. Yeah.
Are you going to hack LinkedIn and
hack LinkedIn? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm planning to do. Yeah.
Look, LinkedIn already. We broke it once. Let's not talk about it again. So Ben says, I don't understand death threats. Why does anyone ever think this is a good idea?
Ask the people who make them, Ben.
It's unbelievable. And William, great question. Why and how is IT always under budgeted?
Well, if we're putting security under IT, that's part of the problem. I am on the boat where security and IT should be aligned together on that same level, because IT, if you think about it, is really availability. And if security is confidentiality, integrity, and availability, if anything, IT should be under security, but at a minimum, it should be aligned. So, but that doesn't really answer your question, William. IT is traditionally under budgeted because it's just get your job done kind of stuff. It's not really moving the business forward, as in getting revenue, et cetera. If at any time that security can be proven to be like a revenue maker, you're going to start seeing lots of money. So part of your job as a security leader is to show that you have that ROI. You can bring in the cash. You are a customer trust center where people come to you and they understand that you're an enabler for the business, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Which I think depends. The department of no, show them how you can help them make money, and then you can get more money in return.
Yes, make money for your business, right?
But I think that's specific to different industries. Like, we had a CIO on, and he said, as far as they're concerned, it was keep the lights on type of a situation. Now, that was that environment. Now, if you have products.
Renee, you're on mute. There it is again.
Fancy mic.
It's fancy mics.
Is it the mic or the operator?
I think she moved her elbow. I think it is the mic. It's just not, it's got a bad UI.
How about I just mute everybody? Ooh, I like that.
She has a
Don't let the power get to your head.
Oh, she muted herself again.
Y'all are killing me. All right, I'm in Namdi, my buddy. I'm in security by way of DevOps. So I'm covering people, so let me move myself over here. I'm in security by way of DevOps and application development. We believe in experimentation, failing fast, experimenting, learning, et cetera, et cetera. Firing CISOs for the, quote, one thing limits experimentation. When employees are in fear due to job security, they tend to play extremely safe. Without experimentation, it is extremely difficult to be innovative. What are your thoughts as CISOs?
Well, the first analogy I can think of is like when a doctor says they're continuing practicing, like the word they use when they're doctors is practicing. But excuse me, can we not call it practice? Because that just sounds like you haven't really figured it out yet. But it's an analogous to CISOs where we are seen as experts already. And if you don't already have it done and down to a science, you're not given that wiggle room. You're not allowed to practice, even though doctors are apparently. So,
well, think about it. A doctor doesn't lose his job when he kills a patient.
Well, they get sued, but
but they've got malpractice insurance, right? Right. But then they continue to work, right? They get like unless you're a really bad doctor who's can't get malpractice insurance, that's pretty much the only time. And then you go to teach. I don't understand how that works, right? Like, I've killed so many patients, folks. Let me tell you what not to do.
Same with police,
right. But in cyber,
never good.
But in cyber, you get canned one time and that's it. It's game over.
We're not killing people out there. At least hopefully not.
Not yet.
Not yet. But yeah, it's completely unfair. So how do we change it, guys? Let's move that conversation forward.
Reginald says life gets better afterwards. So life gets better after. Danielle, you can write a book after getting fired from being a CISO.
Yeah, that's all the cyber books out there today.
Alan Alfred is here.
Alan, what's up?
Anyone want to be a CISO? I mean, seriously.
Alan is a CISO.
Yeah, Alan is a CISO, but does anyone want to be a CISO? I don't know. I mean, that's why you see CISO posts out for months and months and not being filled because you go and you meet with the leadership and no one wants to take that role.
Yeah.
And it's not a glorified security engineer, by the way. It's not like the pinnacle of your security engineering career. It's a completely different track.
Right.
It's an executive track. Yeah.
Totally. Brent says you need to manage the expectations from the beginning. And yes, he is coming on to the podcast. Woohoo. Someone says, I think he was fired because Trump disagreed with him and was angry at what he said, not because he failed as a CISO. Is that Shady Dave making that comment?
I don't know. But here's the deal, though. Chris Krebs wasn't the CISO. Chris Krebs led CISA. There's a big difference. There is a CISO in the White House that has no business being a CISO in the White House. Like the guy's resume has no security in it whatsoever.
Here we go.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's start with that aspect. Chris Krebs was fired. Apparently, because maybe you don't know why, right? But people are guesstimating it's because of the statement he said, because that's what was in the president's tweet. There could be more to it. There could be less to it. We don't know. But it's the culture of why he got fired. And it's the lack of understanding downstream of who's responsible. For the federal government has no business interfering in county decisions and state decisions in the election software they use. That is not the role of the federal government. That's why elections are run by counties. So if people just understand that, they understand why. And Chris has done so much for the community. People who weren't around in 2016 and 17 and before that don't understand that no one trusted to partner with the federal government. No private organization wanted to partner with the federal government. No one wanted anything to do. It was inefficient. You would get data so old from the government. Like you'd get alerts that you've already handled them and you're done with them months after, telling you like, hot news, this ransomware strain. And you're like, yeah, we know that was 2 months ago. And Chris Krebs did so many magnificent things. He earned the public partnership. He earned the public-private relationship. He earned it. He put in the work. He went to meetings. He went to conferences. He did dinners, lunches, breakfast. He listened to people. He built a CISO council around him, right, of private sector CISOs. He reached out to vendors. He reached out internationally. I was with Chris last year during Cyber Week in Israel, right? We were talking with, Israeli authorities and Korean and other people about cooperation internationally. Chris was the right man for this job. He didn't deserve what happened on Tuesday at all.
Especially over tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Tweet part not cool. Sepper, as Gian's Bikusa from Google says, the safest network is the one inside some an unknown bunker, which is not connected to any network, but it is also the most useless network. With that being said, I think we have to change the culture around this topic and make sure normal people understand that threats exist. And like James said, there will be some that are going to slip through.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
I agree. Alan says, if you don't have P&L responsibility, quote, do more for less. It's the only move you've got.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. Look at the CIS top 20, start knocking off that checklist and you know,
start with asset management.
Yeah.
Exactly. Greg says,
and she's muted again.
I know. Do you find reporting to Apex fine? There's little interest in your results until it becomes a negative breach or a breach?
Well, that's why you need to be a marketer. I mean, if you're going to be any security leader, you have to work with the business to show how you're bringing value. So don't wait until it becomes a negative. Show your positives all the time.
So we have to be CISOs and marketers.
And salespeople.
Yes.
A little bit of everything.
And people.
Exactly.
And all this with people who are introverts.
Wait,
predominantly.
People?
So Alan says that line that he had up there before, does anyone want to be a CISO? That was stolen from Rich Mason. He says CISO Thursdays here.
I'm curious as to what your Myers-Briggs personality types are. Do you guys know? Like, what is a successful CISO's personality type? Is there a standard or a
yes? Look at
one?
Gary Hayslip. Done.
I know Alan knows what it is.
Around. Okay,
Yeah.
so CISO Thursdays. That's Chris Van Gorder. Hey, Chris. Let's see. Hevcac? What is that?
I don't know.
It's like Kofifi. We don't know what that means.
What is
Kofefi.
that?
Kofefi. It's like a made-up
Kofefi.
word that makes
It's a made-up word, yeah.
Chris Van Gorder, let us know what that is. Ben says CISO malpractice insurance. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
No.
it is.
Is there
No,
CISO malpractice insurance?
They have it
Man,
for
those
doctors.
I know they have insurance.
I know there's cyber insurance. I didn't know they have CISO malpractice insurance. Like
for the CISO themselves.
for the
Wait,
CISO themselves.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like personal liability insurance.
Oh, okay.
They totally need it.
Pay for
sure.
that personal security guard, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's nuts.
that's great. Can you add that to my compensation package?
Right. Romy says not all organizations
Some
understand their.
negotiate that.
Yeah.
Say that again, Chris.
Some CISOs negotiate that they have their own legal representation and malpractice insurance as part of their package, so that they're not held responsible, kind of like Melissa Myers did over at Yahoo.
Yeah, I have seen that. Romy says not all organizations understand their business goals and how IT/security will protect and improve their maturity. They need more educated CEOs as well in security. Consistent education should be cut across all leadership roles.
Amen.
Agreed.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. CEOs have to run an entire company. They spend their time, most CEOs divide their time based on their budget. So if security is 3% of your budget, you're spending 3% of your time on security.
And that's why you don't align yourself with your budget. That's why you align yourself with the business. So even though you're under security, align yourself with the biggest business driver within the organization and show why you're instrumental to their success, so that you then get tied to their budget item.
Theoretically, I love it.
James is always the cynic. He's the cynic out of the group.
Well, I mean, again, we talk about the solutions to this, but we're right now in our in what I like to call our security echo chamber.
Our bubble.
Right? Our bubble.
Our little bubble.
Right? The challenge, one of the challenges is we have to start looking outside of security. And that's why, like 2020, I spoke, I think, at 2 security conferences out of like the 20 some odd conferences I've spoken in, because we have to get out and start talking to CFOs and COOs and CEOs and CTOs. And we have to start influencing them to understand that they need to intertwine security as well, because that's the only way we're going to get rid of this fire a CISO culture.
Yep.
Security is
it's
everyone's responsibility.
It is.
yeah, that's such a buzzword though, Naomi.
No,
That's
man, no, like that's changing. I think people are starting to learn it. Like it's not just under the security group.
Every
You're
time
such a
I
rock star, James. 20 conferences. Wow.
Yeah, 26 conferences. Whoa. All right. So William says, thank you for answering my question, Naomi. I have heard that from the start of my IT career that IT does not make money for the business, so that is why they are underfunded. How can we go about presenting to the business on how we maintain the revenue growth and the ROI in IT and security?
Understanding business mission and aligning yourself to that.
Sometimes not that easy.
Look, here's the thing. Use security as a business driver, meaning the successful CISOs that you see today are the ones where if you go to a company's website and you see the security tab on the bottom and they have a highlight of what they're doing in security and they understand and they've made it so that the business dedicates the footer or one part of the company to a security tab, is the companies where the CISOs are getting their job done. Because now you've been able to pin security as enhancing your company's sales process, as enhancing your company's position, and making it one of the same, right? And that's significant, and that's just this one small step, but it's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with James. As long as like security is seen as building trust with customers, like the people who are actually paying money into the company, right? If you are automatically seen as, like you're doing a great job and your customers are coming to you because you're known as a great company to work with, a trustworthy company to give money to, not like Target or anything like that, but like just a really good bank, for example. If you are doing your job, then those customers come to you and you are bringing money into your company.
Yeah.
Philip says, I was told by one of my directors I would have to sell her on a security review and upgrade after a successful attack from the external.
Well, why wait till an external attack? Do an internal red team and then show them the value.
That's what's so crazy about this.
After a successful attack?
After a successful attack.
Well, then Philip just open up some firewall rule there. Like allow everything, and go ahead. There you go. You got your attack.
Unbelievable. So Alan says totally different skill set, and I'm thinking Alan was talking about when we talked about the executives. It might have been there.
Yeah.
Tyrone says I do, but I have a long way to go here. This is Leighton says he has a job or two for Chris Krebs, so Chris will be fine. He will be fine.
I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Yeah, I think you should go to the most recent con.
If you want to become a CISO, check out my Defense in Depth podcast for a CISO take on the CISO life.
Alan's a co-host there. He's really good.
Yeah, awesome.
Really good.
We love that podcast.
David Sparks.
Cedric said, I think of our culture is not reacting fast and also not being proactive enough. I could be wrong, but that is based on what I have seen. Could a breach be the pinnacle of the fact that a CISO wasn't doing what he or she was supposed to be doing?
You can do all the right things. Look at Capital One. You can do all the right things and have just one small mistake and pay for it because everything else ran like clockwork.
Yeah.
The opinions offered do not represent those of my employer.
How's your new job there, Chris?
Chris is a Capital One guy now. Chris is a Capital One guy. Chris, this is Chris Van Gorder's comment, trumping in that.
I do not represent these of my employer.
Alan says, CISO can be the best in the world and have an unlimited budget and still get breached. Yeah, I think people don't fully understand that. Like, you can be doing everything, but to James's point earlier, when nation states are actively, aggressively coming at, like, their whole, it's like a country is coming after you. Like, you can do everything. The best robber is going to break in your house if they want to get in.
Security has to be like part of the culture. Like, it starts from people, process, and then technology. All the budget and everything like that. Like, that doesn't help if you don't have a good security culture of people that question why something might be not looking right before just handing over information.
Yeah, Good point,
Alan-
Chris.
James, who are their top like countries that are trying to attack us? Like, I think it's China, Russia. Iran. Yeah, like, are there any others on that list?
So Vietnam is very,
really?
very active.
Huh.
Vietnam is extreme, especially in the crypto space. So you have to look at who's attacking us for what, right? China and Russia, it's for IP, being able to troll our networks in an event of, any geopolitical things, whether it be economic or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
North Korea and Iran, what they're trying to do is get money because they're broke. Right? I mean, they have no money. They're both under sanctions. And so they use crypto and ransomware to finance their operations. And then you've got the threat actors that are hired by nation states that come after you. And so a CISO isn't dealing with one specific threat from one problem. You're dealing with multiple threats, including people that are trying to make a name for themselves by coming after you. I mean, if you really want to understand how sophisticated some breaches are, look at the 2014 JP Morgan Chase breach. That is the most sophisticated breach in U.S. history.
Was that the one where they went through that they were doing like a march or something? Like the employees were they were a part of an organization that was doing some kind of like, not March for Dimes or one of these marches, and that's how they broke in? Was it that one?
No. So the JP Morgan Chase breach of 2013-14 was these hackers, these criminals broke into JP Morgan Chase's 88 million investor database. They didn't go after their banking customers. They went after their institutional and private party investors. They hacked that database. They took it in real time. And then they launched call centers, email marketings, and they were doing pump and dump schemes through JP Morgan Chase.
Wow.
So they got that, and it wasn't just JP Morgan Chase. They did it with Scottrade, E-Trade, a lot of the online platforms. It's estimated that they made out with $2 billion that can be accounted for. $2 billion in like 6 months.
Wow. So Eric says here, Korea, Russia, Romania, Vietnam, China, Iran, Romania more so as a criminal element rather than
a nation state. Yeah. Verizon just launched a cyber espionage report, their first ever, this week. I actually read it yesterday. It is a great report. If you look that, I'm now cross-referencing it with the DBIR report, and I'll probably do an entire, kind of like podcast or a post on, comparing the stuff from the cyber espionage report to the Verizon DBIR report, because there's some really cool intel in there that would help anyone in security.
Good comment, Eric. It isn't a question of whether you will be breached. The question is, when have you been breached?
Correct.
Great points. All CISOs should insist on the right to record all responses from C-suite to their proactive security recommendations prior to accepting a position. Who said this? What's this?
Yeah, that's part of risk acceptance, right? You need to document the decisions and that's the conversation. Yeah, that is part of it.
Leighton said, and he also said here, the CEOs and CFOs should be taking the hit too. CEOs and CFOs should take the hit for breaches.
Yeah.
I heard at some point some CEOs had gotten, or they were either getting threatened to be fired or something like that. Like the board of directors was saying, yes, that the CEO should be taking hits.
The only CEO that's ever been fired because of a breach on record is Equifax. And he wasn't fired. He resigned and took a $90 million payday.
Right.
His name is Dick
Smith.
Nice. Is it part of their contract?
Payday?
In their contract, I think they have like reasons for termination. Like they're the only reasons they're allowed to be terminated. And I think CISO should have something like that. I don't hear it often.
It depends on the organization, right? So if a CISO is part of the C-suite executive, if they're like up in that C-suite, a lot of CISOs have the C-suite title, but not the C-suite access.
Correct.
Right?
Which is part of the problem. Yeah.
Right. So when you have the title, but you don't have the access, you don't get that. But when you have the title and you have the access, then you're able to negotiate it.
Right.
All the authority, or was it all the responsibility, but none of the authority? I think I heard that.
Fun times.
Taxation without representation.
Taxation without representation. So Alan says that he is the personality type ENTJ or ENTP. I don't know.
Alan, I was telling the folks here in our internal chat that I'm pretty sure that's a sociopath's personality type. I'm also an ENTJ.
I think I'm one too.
Yeah.
I was telling
I'm an ENTJA.
Oh my goodness.
I refuse to give out my personality type.
Oh, we already know, James.
Don't worry, it's been breached.
It's been breached.
The Chinese have had it for 10 years. They've been trying to get rid of it. I was like, that guy.
Oh my God. Okay. Alan says, step 1, identify that the business in particular, which programs or clients or whatever the revenues are. And then step 2, identify assets and processes that feed that business. And there is a step 3 in here. Step 3, secure that crap. So that's how he's
forgetting step 4. He's forgetting step 4.
What's step 4?
Find a way to pay for the crap you're trying to secure.
You don't pay for the crap that you're trying to secure. Try to show the business the risk of the stuff you're trying to secure, so they can pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
See,
someone's got Nigeria on here. Did you like one of the nation states? Yeah, I mean, by the way, just so you know, like Vietnam and Romania are predominantly, also Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, the country of Georgia, Nigeria, South Africa, all those places. It's all criminal elements of hacking.
Mm-hmm.
All of it is.
Wow. Ben said he just listened to Darknet Diaries episode about JP Morgan Chase. I got to check that out. Okay, there was some other comments up here that I want to share. Philip Wells says, I got my hands on the CISO Compass by Todd Fitzgerald. Very interesting read where a number of the top CISOs bring out how they were able to be successful in the role. Eric says, as a CEO, you are not as focused on budget as risk to the bottom line.
I got a question for Chris here. When you're teaching your classes, Chris, do you explain to your students that security is more than just the technical skills? Like how much of your educational, I guess not just but the curriculum, how much of it is it focused on those persuasiveness, soft skills, communication, all that stuff? Like what percentage would you say?
I would say none. Most of the classes are intro, so I add that as an element. Like in all my written reports, I don't just want to see a technical analysis, or I don't want to see, hey, this technology does this. I force all my students to present a business problem and how their recommendations align to the business problem and help mitigate the risk. And if they don't show me that alignment and how it helps mitigate the risk, they don't get full credit.
Okay, well, that's good from your perspective, but if it's not in the textbooks, it's not in the curriculum, and other professors in your...
Most of that, those are like soft skills, not typically included in a textbook.
Yeah, that's super frustrating.
Yeah.
Ben says, so many laughs this morning. Thank you, James.
I want to be the Steven Crowder of the cyber industry.
You're the cynic.
I want to go to RSA and put a table with a mug that says "Change my mind about
Change my mind
about job descriptions."
What I love about James is his facial expressions. Like that's a story in and of it. He doesn't even open his mouth. It's just one of those.
You know, it's funny. Say that to my daughter. Say that to my daughter. She's like, "Dad," and I'm like, "What?" She's like, okay, never mind, forget it. Yeah, you already know.
You don't even have to answer. Danielle, CISOs need to sit in the boardroom. Amen, Danielle. See?
Danielle gets it.
Danielle gets it. Ben, it's everyone's responsibility now since the edge of the network includes individual homes. That is very true.
That is very true, Ben.
Very, very true. A CISO must be focused on transforming the language of people, technical, and process risk into something that is able to be a decision for a CEO, CFO, et al. It's Eric Williams. Brent says, communicate the risk to leadership, not the potential, but the reality. Here, let's see. Not the potential, but the reality.
Not if, but when. We will.
Not if, but when. We will be breached. Phishing will be successful. Attackers only need to be lucky once to establish a foothold. The security strategy should be focused on defense and recovery so attacks can be discovered quickly, mitigated, investigated, and organization returns to operations as quickly as possible. Very, very true.
Yeah. It's not the fact that you've been attacked or that attack has been successful. It's the amount of impact that it had to your business. So if you can mitigate that impact quickly, like Brent said, it's absolutely okay to get breached, as long as they didn't get away with any records. You can ransomware all the computers you want. There's nothing on it. Just replace it. Yeah. We got a lot of good comments today, Renee.
It's
CISO, I was just telling my 9-year-old, leave. I am still on my last year. Yeah, great comments today. Let's see. There's another one here. All CISOs should insist on the right to record. Oh, we said that already. I think that was latent. Practitioners must be able to articulate a relevant KPI in order to enable translation of the risk to the C-suite.
The problem is we don't have relevant KPIs across the industry. So we don't have a standard KPI across the industry. So when you go to report to the board, and I've done this before, and I think a lot of CISOs, when you go to report to the board, the people who sit on your company's board sit on other boards. And when they see different KPIs from every security officer that they meet, then they think everything's a crapshoot. Because while one guy is highlighting these KPIs, this other guy's highlighting those KPIs, and there's no uniform. And that's not the same for CFOs or CMOs or anyone else that reports to the board, because those specific environments have standard KPIs.
Well, I'd argue that there's no
standard risk.
Yeah, I would argue there is no good KPI for security.
Right, but you have to understand that when we say that, what we're essentially telling board members is get used to the fact that there's no standard risk. And at some point we have to say, well, let's just all tentatively agree on a standard risk per industry. And then let's make that standard risk per industry the uniform for the board. And if we do that, then we'll be able to really start nailing things at home. But I can't tell you how many times after a board meeting, I spend time with board members having to explain why I use those KPIs. And in their conversations with me, they're like, this CISO, at this last board meeting I was at 2 weeks ago for this other company showed these KPIs.
Alan just made a really good comment. He said, being a CISO is like being a CFO before general accounting practices were established.
Yes,
that is brilliant.
That is brilliant.
That is well said, Alan.
Yep, absolutely true.
Very smart man.
You're a mentor. Okay, so more comments up here. Problem. Alan says he's an ENTP personally. Tony, my buddy Tony is here. We should not tolerate vulnerabilities in our software. Too many developers rush to operate, reduce their targets to reduce the surface, which I think isn't that what happened at in Capital One had pretty secure software. Still got breached.
Well, Capital One wasn't a secure software issue, it was a cloud issue. They left a database with 99.8% of the data encrypted. But you get fired over 0.2%. You get fired over 0.2% because that's what he got fired for. Or sorry, he was promoted to cybersecurity advisor. I'm sorry. Right. He wasn't fired.
It's always about the promotion.
Cybersecurity advisor.
The pivot. Eric says practitioners must be able to codify risk for decision makers and assessment in an ongoing manner, not a one-off as requested. If you do not enable your people to implement in real time via an appropriate security and incident response plan, you will pay.
Amen.
Eric adds another one, Brazil. Eric, you're on fire here, man. Danielle says, are you my Nigerian prince? Who's the Nigerian prince? Is Chris playing Nigerian prince today? Chris looks so chill. He's digging that hat. Hey, JJ Davey is here. We have all the peeps are here today.
Don't hate. It's 2020.
Ben says, for those interested, he has a link. He provided the link to the episode. Thank you so much, Ben. I will be listening. Those are all our comments so far. This has been fun.
Great timing because I know James has to leave, and I got to
leave at 11:58, and it is 11:58 on the East Coast.
Who would have thunk it?
Perfect timing. Well, folks, this has been fun. As usual, James, Naomi, Chris, Foulon, and all of I call them our additional guests because the audience is just as fun as us. We will see you again. Oh, wait a minute. Next week is Thanksgiving. James is frying a turkey and all that stuff. So
I ain't frying a turkey.
Live stream your turkey fry.
You know what? I'm thinking I want to go hunt and do venison for Thanksgiving. I think that's more American than turkeys.
Live stream your deer hunt.
Turkey already.
he has his pre-cooked already. I love it. So 2 Thursdays from now, I guess.
I guess so.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving,
be safe on Black Friday.
everybody.
Thanks, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, Alan.
Bye, Danielle.
Bye, Danielle.
All our favorite people. Bye.